Yongsan's mind faltered, struggling to accept the revelation that had just been laid before him. The thought of his leader, the one he had revered for his immense power and mastery, being defeated seemed impossible. Yet, his mind raced, his heart pounding in his chest as fragments of the earlier commotion lingered in his memory. He had sensed the immense turmoil not long ago, the surge of energy so intense that it rattled the very air. A mixture of confusion and suspicion churned in his gut as he replayed the events in his mind, trying to piece together the puzzle. However, he could not fathom the news. No one could defeat Gil-jun, especially not someone like the like such as Yeon-Myeong. His disbelief turned to outrage, his voice rising in fury as he turned toward the one who had delivered this unthinkable news. But Yeon-Myeong remained composed, unfazed by the elder's reaction. His tone was eerily calm, as though he had expected this exact response. His words were deliberate, each one slicing through the tension with a chilling finality. He spoke of the Black Death Alliance leader's power, acknowledging his terrifying techniques with a detached reverence. But then, in the same breath, he revealed the truth. He had surpassed Gil-jun and, in the end, had been the one to end his reign. The battlefield fell into a tense and uncertain silence as Baek Yongsan, the elder of the Black Death Alliance, took a staggering step back, his expression twisted with shock and grief. The realization struck him like a thunderclap. Gil-jun, the indomitable leader of their alliance, had truly been defeated. His blade, which had been poised for further combat, lowered slowly as the weight of the moment settled upon him. Yongsan turned his gaze across the battlefield, where the alliance's warriors were locked in fierce clashes. Summoning every ounce of authority he possessed, he issued his order. The fighting ceased as his voice echoed through the chaos, each word laden with sorrow and finality. The men, hearing his pronouncement, froze in place, their weapons wavering. A ripple of disbelief swept through the ranks as murmurs broke out among them. Whispers of confusion and shock filled the air as the truth began to sink in. Gil-jun, their supreme master, the unchallenged ruler of the unorthodox path, had fallen. Some could not reconcile the news with reality. Doubts rose like smoke among the warriors, their minds unable to grasp how the feared and mighty Gil-jun could have been defeated, let alone by the young lord of the Tang clan. But Yongsan's voice, steady and resolute, cut through their disbelief. He declared that the impossible had indeed occurred. He spoke of the one who had not only survived Gil-jun's ultimate techniques but had also defeated the legendary Six Fiends, himself excluded. There was no room for doubt in Yongsan's words. The young lord's strength had proven to be a match for their leaders. With grim determination, Yongsan issued his final command. His voice carried the weight of both resignation and responsibility as he implored his men to prioritize their lives over their loyalty. The elder, once feared as the fleeing soul of the Six Fiends, now set an example by urging retreat. Weapons clattered to the ground as warriors obeyed without hesitation. Their faith in Gil-jun's invincibility shattered. They abandoned the battlefield en masse, their survival instincts taking precedence over the fight. One by one, they fled into the distance, leaving behind a battleground that bore the scars of a conflict that had forever changed the balance of power. The warriors of the Black Death Alliance had scattered, heeding his final command to prioritize survival, yet Yongsan remained behind. His silence was heavy, his gaze fixed on the figure before him. For a fleeting moment, he contemplated his position. The reality of Gil-jun's defeat was undeniable, and with it, the futility of further resistance. He knew with unflinching clarity that victory against this opponent was beyond his grasp. Yet, a storm churned within him, memories flooding back in vivid bursts. He saw the faces of his sworn brothers, the men who had shared his burdens and laughter through countless trials, their lives now extinguished. He recalled the daughters born of their bonds, innocent and radiant, all cruelly slaughtered in the chaos that had consumed the alliance. These memories fanned the flames of his grief into a searing rage. His hand tightened on the hilt of his blade, and a grim determination hardened his features. Even if the act was one of futility, even if it served only as a vessel for his anguish, he felt an unshakable duty to draw his weapon and face his opponent. To him, this was not merely combat. It was an act of defiance, a final stand to honor those who had fallen. Yeon-Myeong, standing across from him, seemed to grasp the weight of Yongsan's resolve. There was no mockery, no scorn in his expression, only a quiet, steely readiness. He lifted his dagger, the blade catching the dim light as he adjusted his stance. His movements were deliberate, calm, as if offering a silent acknowledgement of the elder's intent. Yongsan surged forward, his blade cutting through the air with all the desperation and anguish that consumed him. Each step he took was heavy with resolve, his thoughts a torrent of sorrow and finality. The memories of his fallen comrades, those who had shared in his hardships, their laughter and loyalty woven into the fabric of his existence, drove him forward. To him, life held no meaning without them. His heart, already fractured by grief, sought only the solace of joining them in death. In his mind, this final act of defiance was his farewell, a tragic reunion with those he had lost. Yeon-Myeong stood steadfast, unshaken by the elder's ferocious assault. His expression was calm, his movements deliberate. As Yongsan's blade came within reach, Yeon-Myeong made his move. A single, precise counter that cut through the elder's attack like a knife through silk. There was no hesitation in his strike, only an eerie finality that seemed almost merciful. The blow landed cleanly, decisively, bringing Yongsan's last stand to an abrupt end. Thus, the reign of the Black Death Alliance, the rulers of Sichuan whose power had loomed over the region like a dark shadow, crumbled in a single day. The chaos, the battles, and the lives lost. All of it had been brought to an end by one person, a figure whose presence would forever change the unorthodox path's history. Jai Jang stood before the young lord, his posture humble, though a slight tension remained in his stance, a reminder of the ordeal he had recently endured. When Yeon-Myeong's voice broke the silence, Jai Jang's attention snapped to him, awaiting the reason for the unexpected summons. Yeon-Myeong observed the injured warrior with a calm yet piercing gaze, noting the way Jai Jang held his severed arm. He spoke without judgment, but his tone conveyed the recognition of the burden Jai Jang now bore. There was no surprise or pity in Yeon-Myeong's voice, just a quiet acknowledgement of the suffering that came with such a loss. Jai Jang, however, responded without complaint. His answer was humble, but there was a certain resolve in his voice, a sense of duty that defined his actions. He had been trained for this, prepared to function with either hand equally well, and the pain of the injury was tempered by his unwavering discipline. Yeon-Myeong, though attentive to Jai Jang's words, had other matters on his mind. His focus shifted to the more pressing issue, the debt he owed Jai Jang. Despite their past differences, Yeon-Myeong knew that Jai Jang's actions had saved his mother's life, and that was not something easily overlooked. The moment was quiet, the words simple, but they carried a weight of gratitude that Yeon-Myeong had long kept at bay. Jai Jang, ever the martial artist, deflected praise as if it were no more than the fulfillment of his duty. He did not seek recognition or reward for his actions, nor did he expect anything in return for his service. It was clear to Yeon-Myeong that the warrior before him was a man of integrity, driven by honor rather than personal gain. Yeon-Myeong's tone shifted abruptly. The young lord's words carried a sense of decisiveness, proposing a path forward that Jai Jang had not anticipated. Jai Jang blinked in surprise, his calm composure briefly faltering as he processed Yeon-Myeong's unexpected suggestion. The idea of learning the sword, particularly the left-handed sword technique, was foreign to him, a departure from his lifelong reliance on daggers and poisons. Yet, as Yeon-Myeong elaborated, the practicality of the offer became evident. With only one arm, the intricate techniques of the Tang clan's traditional weapons would be significantly more challenging to execute. The sword, wielded with precision and skill, could offer Jai Jang a new strength, one that might surpass even what he had once possessed with both arms. Yeon-Myeong's confidence in his plan was evident, his words underscored by a quiet conviction. He assured Jai Jang that, under his guidance, the transition to the sword would not only restore his combat effectiveness but elevate it. The promise of such growth, combined with the young lord's willingness to personally oversee his training, left Jai Jang momentarily speechless. Then, as understanding dawned, Jai Jang lowered himself in a deep bow. Gratitude radiated from his every movement, his voice steady yet filled with genuine respect as he accepted Yeon-Myeong's offer. Yeon-Myeong, however, dismissed the need for formalities with a wave of his hand, his demeanor softening. He acknowledged his own debt to Jai Jang, reminding him that the offer was not simply an act of generosity but one of repayment. Exhaustion weighed heavily on Jae Chang-sin as he worked through the endless stream of responsibilities that had fallen upon him. His shoulders slumped, and a disgruntled expression darkened his face as he grumbled under his breath, bemoaning the relentless workload that seemed to stem from the young lord's increasingly demanding presence. His frustration boiled over in a quiet snort. Unbeknownst to him, Yeon-Myeong had entered the room. The young lord's sharp voice cut through the air from behind Jae Chong-sin, startling him mid-complaint. The older man stiffened instantly, his eyes widening as he realized he had been overheard. The frustration on his face vanished, replaced with a hastily composed smile as he turned to face Yeon-Myeong, feigning surprise and concern. Words tumbled out of his mouth as he tried to pivot the conversation, expressing exaggerated relief at the young lord's safe return. Yeon-Myeong, however, was not one to be easily swayed by pleasantries. His gaze was piercing, his tone curt as he dismissed the formalities with an air of authority. The tension in the room was palpable, and Jae Chong-sin, quick to adapt, let out a nervous laugh. He stumbled over his words, offering an overly cheerful explanation for his earlier outburst, brushing it off as a simple misstep. Yeon-Myeong's voice remained steady as he acknowledged Jae Chang-sin's contributions. He mentioned hearing from both Mirio and Young, who praised Chang-sin's tireless efforts in maintaining the defensive formation and holding back the enemy forces. The words were spoken without reproach, a gesture of recognition for the elder's role in the recent conflict. Chong-sin let out a nervous laugh in response, brushing off the compliment with modesty. Yet beneath his light-hearted exterior, memories of his earlier thoughts crept back into his mind, filling him with quiet discomfort. At the height of the battle, when the pressure had been overwhelming, he had seriously contemplated abandoning his post. The temptation to flee had been strong, an escape from the weight of responsibility and the looming specter of death. He recalled how, in that desperate moment, his cousin Young had intervened. She had confronted him with fiery determination, admonishing his wavering resolve. Her sharp words had reminded him of his duty, not only to their clan but also to the Tang clan. She insisted that this was not a time for retreat, but a chance to strengthen their alliance with the young lord of the Tang clan. Her conviction was unwavering as she reminded Chong-sin that even Mirio, despite her exhaustion, had ventured out to buy precious time for the defensive formation to stabilize. Despite her words, Chong-sin had argued that if Yeon-Myeong had truly gone to confront Gil-jun, the leader of the Black Death Alliance, the odds of survival were slim. To this, Young had fired back with unyielding belief in the young lord. She declared with absolute certainty that Yeon-Myeong would return and that he must. Her faith in him had been so resolute that it left no room for doubt, and her determination had ultimately kept Chong-sin rooted in place. Jae Chong-sin shifted nervously, his voice betraying a mix of humility and unease, as he offered a modest acknowledgement of his contributions. Despite his earlier doubts and near abandonment, he could only express gratitude that his efforts had proven beneficial in the end. Yeon-Myeong, with a calm and composed demeanor, stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on Chang-sin's shoulder. His words carried both gratitude and assurance, promising the Tang clan's full support in aiding the Jegal clan's recovery. The weight of the young lord's acknowledgement settled on Chong-sin like an unexpected balm, momentarily easing the tension he carried. Struggling to find the right words, Chong-sin responded with quiet thanks, his voice tinged with genuine relief. Yeon-Myeong, already turning away, added a parting remark, entrusting Chong-sin with the responsibility of managing matters in his absence. His voice, steady and resolute, carried a sense of trust that left Chong-sin momentarily speechless. As the young lord moved toward the door, Chang-sin's thoughts swirled with disbelief. The man he had once feared, whose presence had always loomed over him like an unyielding storm, now seemed almost unrecognizable. There was an air of maturity and assurance about Yeon-Myeong that felt unfamiliar, as though he had grown into an entirely different person. Yet, just as Chong-sin thought the moment was over, Yeon-Myeong paused at the threshold. Without turning back, he delivered a final remark, sharp and unmistakable, addressing the hesitation Chong-sin had felt during the crisis. The words landed with precision, striking the core of Chang-sin's earlier doubts and leaving no room for denial. Caught off guard, Chang-sin's breath hitched, and a cold realization gripped him. Yeon-Myeong had known all along, of his wavering resolve, of his fleeting thoughts of desertion. The young lord had chosen not to confront him outright until now, sparing him public humiliation but leaving an unmistakable mark of accountability. As Yeon-Myeong walked down the quiet hallway of the Tang clan residence, the weight of recent events lingered in his mind. His steps echoed softly against the stone floors, the rhythmic sound offering a momentary solace in the otherwise still atmosphere. He had been through countless trials in the past days, but now, as he reflected on the aftermath of the war, a sense of cautious relief began to settle over him. The main clan, he realized, had come through the conflict relatively unscathed, a fortunate outcome amidst the chaos. His thoughts turned to the future, the tasks that remained despite the resolution of many immediate threats. A plan began to take shape in his mind, the next steps becoming clearer as he walked. Most matters have been resolved, he thought, but there was still one pressing concern left. What followed now would be pivotal, and Yeon-Myeong knew that it was the last piece of the puzzle that required his attention.